Alright, so getting something here. Excellent connection. Okay, I think we're going well. Okay, I'm seeing myself. Alright, let me just unmute to see if I can hear it. Alright, let me just... Cool. Now I'll give you the link. You can post it in the DC if you want, and I will post it in Dragonfighter and Global.
Yep, let me just boink that and go into stream alert. Let me open it up so I can see the chat. I'm still there.
Woo!
I'm tiny as ever, just plapping at your toes.
Hello, Wicked Cat. Good to see you. As always, I'm going to wait a couple of minutes to let people come on in and file. You know, I'm going to do the classic streamer thing of letting people file in. I think once it starts becoming a regular thing, I'm going to be giving people heads up before, but at the moment we're still in the experimental scene if this is gonna be a regular thing stage. Though, I mean, the last one went well. I'm hoping this one will go well.
Yeah. Also, we're gonna have to put things in your OBS like the chat scrolling somewhere on the upper corner, maybe a actual stream avatar instead of this chippy I made like a year potato and a stick.
Not at all, Ark. We've just started. You're perfectly on time. We're literally in the let people come file in mode. And yeah, like, if you want to help with that, Dogi, I'd appreciate it. Though, I really do like the art you've made of the Lunacorva.
It's old.
It's still good, though. Like, that just means your new stuff has gotten better. And Kat, I understand. Hopefully you'll be able to at least stay around for the first 25 minutes of things.
Yep.
Indeed. I've also posted this to a couple of other to at least one other server, so there may be, and no guarantee, but a chance of people from different worlds meeting each other today.
We will see.
Indeed.
Just watch, one of our DC friends is gonna just hop in here at some point.
I was actually referring to posting it in the global Discord.
I meant the call.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough. That's a possibility too.
If they do, you're gonna have to fight with OBS a little bit more and get the new image in.
I make no such promises. Mainly because I am concerned that I'd have to stop the stream and start it again to add a new image. And at that point, it would be a case of, okay, you're just going to have to be represented by the void.
Right, sorry we're visiting your place again. Shay doesn't have a background aside from the sneak peek into your home.
Wait,
I am sorry.
Hold on, no. We're not visiting. We're not visiting Noid's void. Noid is the missing void. This is clearly found. We can see it right there.
No, he lives in the void. That's why it's missing.
Yeah, but if we know what this void is and it's not missing, he's in the missing void. We're in the found void.
No, he is the missing void. He's piece of the void. That's why because he lives in the void. But when he's not in the void, he's the missing void.
Ah, okay, that makes sense. So it's missing in the context of a piece removed rather than the context of a piece not found. That makes sense.
Yep.
God, I love that line. It all comes back to the one thing left to call you. A piece of the world, hey Blue Griffin, a piece of the world is missing. That doesn't mean it's gone, it's your name!
What the heck? Yeah, we're
Atop the
talking
fourth
about
wall.
one of my.
Oh, no, I thought you
We're
were
breaking.
friend. Like,
We.
no, you go. You're good.
Yeah, don't worry, Ark. We're just beating down the fourth wall again.
Pratty Mooch.
Which is kind of funny because last time I touched the fourth wall, you yelled at me.
No, well, I think I was more upset with Golgar at that. Bastard.
You called me a heathen, which is accurate, but
Oh,
still.
right, yes. Look, this fourth wall, it's a grown man, kind of a masochist, it can take a beating. That fourth wall was a child!
You say that, and all of our characters are technically children in there, and you have no trouble putting them up against ancient evil gods!
Well, I never said I...
Hypocrite!
Well, I never said I wasn't a hypocrite. Also, your characters deserved it.
What? What did Manu do?
Be a fictional character. By definition, you're signing yourself up for trauma.
You monster!
Yes.
Mm.
And
At
yes,
least the
Blue
audience is
Griffin,
entertained.
Atop the Fourth Wall is one of my favourite shows. You know, I think I'm going to make that another topic for a later podcast. Talking about online work, whether that be fan works, whether that be online projects like Atop the Fourth Wall and Red vs. Blue. I'm a big fan of that stuff. And yes, Ark, we were talking about the Yu-Gi-Oh! RPG, which you can catch episodes every week on the Yu-Gi-Oh! East Academy discussion channel. Plug.
Go yell about Manu and how unstable he is.
Manu is good boy. I'm going to break him over my knee.
You already did that.
Harder.
I mean... Again, you did that. In several ways.
Let's just say I'm not quite finished yet. And we're getting a good number of viewers, so welcome everyone, and it's good to see you. I know we've got Kansas here, we've got Wicked Cat, we've got the Blue Griffin. Looks like there is 3 other viewers at the moment who have not said hi, but I want you to know that you are quite welcome here. Again, at this point, we are just in the let people come in, settle down before we get to the meat and potatoes of this.
Yeah, why does nobody discuss fanfics and other online fan-made stuff? There is a lot of discussion about those things, but I'm pretty sure Shay is going to be excited to talk about some of his own favorite things.
Indeed, but also... Until My Little Pony, and I think I said this before, until My Little Pony, a lot of fan works were... The only times fan works were brought up was in outside of the actual dedicated fanfiction circles, was in a so bad it's good context. In a, hey, here's a really terribly written one, let's talk about it. But that is a discussion for another day, one I will be happy to talk about, but a discussion for another day.
Cough, cough, ebony darkness, dementia arriving way.
Precisely. Or to quote a classic children's book, but that is another story, and shall be told at another time. And if you get that reference, you are awesome. Though I will say, amongst my Year 5 class, that quote was basically our equivalent of, oh yes, Ark? Yep. The original Neverending Storybook, which my Year 5 teacher read to the class. And that line, and that is another story, and shall be told at another time, was our version of you do not detect any traps within the immediate vicinity. It was one of those, like, as the teacher started the first half of the sentence, everyone was like, oh god damn it! Okay, so now that 10 minutes have passed, first of all, welcome everyone, and for those who are here from the preview, excellent, sorry, Blue Griffin. For those who are here from the previous one, welcome back, everyone. Also, Dogi, about the stream chat in OBS, because I just realized something.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're putting this on YouTube, and YouTube already has the stream chat in the sidebar, putting it on in the OBS would actually kind of be redundant.
Ah, true.
Now,
chat reactions though. Oh.
No, they're in the chat as well. They post up on YouTube as well.
No, I mean, sometimes people will post like little emojis, and then there's the little animation that makes it pop on the screen.
We'll discuss that. Anyway, so today we, as set up from the last podcast, are going to be talking about the topic of a Mary Sue. Now, some of you are probably wondering, well, okay, what exactly is a Mary Sue? You may have heard of it, but not really understood what it meant. This may be, in fact, the first time you have ever heard the term. And therein lies the problem. What the fuck is a Mary Sue? Well, if we're going to find out, I would say the best source to go would be where it appeared. Find out what it means by the internet. So if you'll give me a second, I'm going to bring up the internet's definition. And now you'll need to give me another second.
Don't worry, I got dictionary, Oxford Dictionary open. Noun, originally in fan fiction.
Power of Christ compels you!
Heh?
Apologies, I had to clean away the sin.
Okay.
So
okay. I googled it. I got the dictionary Oxford definition.
Yes, so here's the problem. The internet's definition of Mary Sue is a confused, jumbled, and often contradictory mess with a lot of problems. Now, it's probably safer to go back to where it started and where it came about. The internet, Ark. That is why I'm trying to exorcise a demon. The internet. But anyway, it's probably best to start with the origin of the Mary Sue term. However, and I'm not sure, there is a big elephant in the room that does need to be addressed, and I'm not sure whether to do it now or after a bit more context. I'll give the context first. Also, ow my back.
Yeah, that happens when you try to fight off the freaking internet.
Mm-hmm. Yes, good point, Ark. So, the Mary Sue started as a parody character that was written to mock a lot of badly written Star Trek fanfics at the time. It was a story created in the 90s, and it was about an annoyingly overly perfect character who everyone loved, that went on a lot of grand magical adventures, had sex with every character, died heroically, and were seen as the most amazing, awesome, and super special cool person in the entire world. And the fanfic pointed out how ridiculous this was, and it coined the term Mary Sue for a lot of characters who were like that. You may be seeing a problem, because what that describes is, in a way, a form of wish fulfillment. And wish fulfillment is not necessarily bad writing, but the way it was presented in the Mary Sue, and the way it has often been written, unfortunately crosses the line from simple wish fulfillment to poor writing. Now, here's the problem. Where do you actually draw that line? Where do you cross the line from wish fulfillment to Mary Sue? Well, the internet jumped on that with thousands of answers, and it was starting to become clear that they actually had no idea what they were talking about. They were jumping into it. So this is what makes a Mary Sue. But wait, what about this character? Oh, so this is what makes a Mary Sue. No, this is. And it started to get so contradictory that you could be a Mary Sue for being too powerful, but you could also be a Mary Sue even if you were too weak. You could be a Mary Sue for having purple hair. You could be a Mary Sue for having green hair. You could be a Mary Sue for having unexplained powers. You could be a Mary Sue for being a completely normal person and just having everyone like you. You could be a Mary Sue here or there. You could be a Mary Sue somewhere over there. You could be a Mary Sue on a boat, a Mary Sue riding a goat. It was a giant fucking mess. But also, there's another elephant in the room that does need to be addressed, and that is the sexism component. Because a lot of characters that have been referred to as Mary Sues are female. In fact, not quite. In fact, more characters, there are more well-known female characters that have been referred to as Mary Sues than there are well-known male characters that have been referred to Mary Sues, and many male characters that you probably would call them Mary Sue for various reasons seem to be exempt from the criticism. Now, have people used the term sexistly? Yes, absolutely they have, because it is something that can be used as an insult, and sexist people will use anything to be an insulting dickhead. And sexism, like with any other form of prejudice, is a flawed, stupid, and parasitic argument that has no legs to stand off on its own, so it has to crib from other arguments to try to pretend that it is anything worth speaking about. That, however, does not mean the term itself is inherently sexist, just that it has been appropriated and used by sexist people. As for the fact that there are more prominent male characters that have escaped the Mary Sue label versus female characters, what that ultimately comes down to is an unfortunate case of timing. Think about this for 1 second. By the way, you doing okay, Dogi? Because I know you've been very quiet and...
Yeah, I'm just listening to you.
Fair enough. Think about this for a second. Aside from aside from Ellen Ripley, Princess Leia, and Princess Leia, and I think there's another. Aside from Ellen Ripley, Princess Leia, and shall we say, Sarah Connor, how many well-known mainstream female hero protagonists do you know that were introduced to the public before the 90s?
Ooh. Okay, this is where my own lack of education is kicking my arse because I am not so well versed on old movies, but I can't think of anyone on the mainstream.
Mm-hmm. And think about the public. Think about Laura Croft. Came into prominence from the 90s. Most Disney heroines became kick-ass heroes during the 90s. Jasmine, 90s hero. Belle, 90s hero.
Mulan,
90s.
90s.
Yeah. Or early 2000s. The rise of prominent female heroes occurred at the same time as the rise of the prominence of Mary Sue. And our society loves to jump on a bandwagon. When there's a new trend, when there's a new way of thinking or analyzing things, people start taking that and applying that to everything. So they heard of this newfangled way of analyzing characters, the Mary Sue, and they start. Yeah, She-Ra, also a new character. Yeah, and they started to analyze all the new characters that are coming out under the lens of the Mary Sue, which also actually did include a lot of male characters, such as Harry Potter, such as Aragorn, two characters who were referred to as Mary Sues by a lot of people who use those terms. The reason that a lot of other characters, like say Batman and Superman, got away with it is due to a fun little Marion Ravenwood, but I don't believe that a lot of people know who Marion Ravenwood is. Xena, another good example. Though I think Xena was also a 90s hero, wasn't she?
Let me double check for you. Xena, protagonist of the story. When? Yeah, as a villain in the 1995 in the Hercules series. Yeah, her first appearance was a villain.
Yep, and then she got her own spin-off series.
Yep. Yeah. Yep.
Indeed. So anyway, but there's a phenomenon we have called the grandfather clause, and how it basically works is when a criticism when the criticism or a way to analyze things is started in the modern era, characters from our past, from our nostalgia, tend to be given an exemption from that solely due to nostalgia. Now, the majority of our female heroes are very new, very recent. But let's look at the male heroes. And how long have people been writing prominent male heroes? Literally since the dawn of writing. If we want to go back to the oldest recorded stories, we have had over 4,000 years of well-known mainstream male heroes. Meanwhile, and this is a stretch, female heroes have only really started to being written in the mainstream in the last 100 years. Which means that, unfortunately, I believe Captain Janeway was actually a 2000s character. But still, that ends up meaning that the male heroes, they have got centuries of characters to draw from that fall under the grandfather clause. Hercules, he's thousands of years old, grandfather clause. Batman, about a century old at this point. Grandfather, oh my god, Batman's about a century old. Never mind, I'm ignoring the relentless march of time. Batman, Superman, grandfather clause. Luke Skywalker, close but still, grandfather clause. Robin Hood, grandfather clause. Gilgamesh, grandfather clause. Name a mythical Greek hero, grandfather clause. Meanwhile, as we've pointed out, there are only about 3 mainstream women. Oh, aside from the DC and Marvel heroes like Wonder Woman, Batwoman, etc.
Shaman the Holograms was a big thing in the 80s, and
Yep.
didn't original She-Ra, I cannot pronounce the word, I apologize, I'm a dumb European.
True, okay, original She-Ra. But the female heroes that were written before the 90s, they also, unless there is a modern remake, but they also get the grandfather clause. No one is calling Princess Leia a Mary Sue. No one is calling Ellen Ripley a Mary Sue. And yes, a disclaimer: when I say no one is saying X, I am aware that that if you look deep enough on the internet, you will find an exception to that rule. There is always going to be one person. There is always going to be that guy. But we are not hearing about that anywhere near as prominently as we are hearing about it for more modern heroes. Because again, grandfather clause, those characters came out before the term Mary Sue was even a thing, so they get the nostalgia shield. So what it comes down to is characters who came out before the Mary Sue was a thing, they get the nostalgia shield. That term is not applied to them. Characters who come out after Mary Sue became a thing, they are looked at within Mary Sue ends like someone studying an insect under a microscope, and it applies to both genders. The sexism part comes in that unfortunately, because writing female hero protagonists has been a relatively new phenomenon in the mainstream, the guys end up having a much larger grandfather clause pool to pull examples from than the women get to.
Ay.
So, I hope that has cleared things up. Any questions? And that includes you, my friend Dogi.
Unfortunately, I do not have any questions.
Indeed. I will give a pause to let the chat catch up and see if they have any questions. Fair enough. What, a couple more minutes? Or more seconds, I guess. Now that the chat is more or less caught up.
It took you 20 minutes to say Mary Sue is based on, well, the current... Great, I'm having a hard time with the English today. I don't understand why.
There. Oh my god. I just realized, what if people come to this without context and think I'm the gremlin and you're the tall, dark, edgy boy?
I mean, I will gladly take the moniker of being the tall, dark, and dangerous, but... I think anyone who knows you or me knows that I am indeed the small,
Indeed. But I
usually
was considering the
hyperactive.
idea of someone coming into this stream, not knowing you, not knowing me, not having any context, and just randomly guessing who the big guy, who the small guy, and think that you are the big guy.
Yeah, let's see. To me, okay, this is from Honey Drop the Unicorn. To me, Mary Sue is any character who wins just because. And Soundwave says, what is your input on the modern take on female heroes that don't qualify as Mary Sue, i.e. Moon Girl from the Marvel comics, April O'Neil from TMD history, etc., etc.
Ah, well, I believe this is a good way to segue onto what I feel is the solution to all the confusion. The solution to all the debates and confusions of, is this a Mary Sue? Is that a Mary Sue? Etc., etc., etc. Because you see, people have spent decades, oh my god, it's been decades debating who is a Mary Sue. They have been debating what is a Mary Sue, but what they haven't asked, and what they needed to ask from the start, was why is a Mary Sue? And more importantly, and more
Why
specifically,
Gamora?
yes, but more specifically, why is a Mary Sue a problem? Let's say your character is a Mary Sue, so what? Why is that a bad thing? And here is my answer. Because it removes interest in your story. This is the key difference. This is what separates a Mary Sue from just a powered hero, even an overpowered hero. Because Alucard from both the original and the abridged series is an overpowered protagonist.
Saitama literally one punches everything to death.
Exactly. But the reason neither of those are Mary Sue's is because the story is still interesting. The story still keeps you intrigued. The story still raises questions. You know that Saitama is going to beat the bad guy with one punch, but there's something else in the story that is keeping you interested. Now, if the story was solely, if the story was presented like Dragon Ball Z, if the story was presented as, can our hero overcome this obstacle and he beat everyone with one punch, that point he becomes a Mary Sue because you've lost interest. You've lost interest in seeing the story basically just hand him a win over and over again. That is the key and important question. Where is the intrigue in your story? Is the intrigue in your mystery? Well, then, an overpowered combat protagonist doesn't have a problem with it. On the other hand, if the intrigue in the story is a mystery and your character just instantly solves the crime in a second just by looking at the scene, you've just thrown away the intrigue in your story. If your story is about fight scenes and who will win the battle, you don't want an overpowered protagonist because at that point, the intrigue, because at that point you've lost the intrigue. Unless, the intrigue in the story is not, can he win, but how cool can he make the victory look? At that point, there is still intrigue in your story.
Yeah.
Now, without name dropping people, because this can lead to debate, in the case of people who have unexplained or inexplicable powers, the reason that can become a problem is because it stops feeling like their successes come from themselves and their organic growth and actions, but instead it starts to feel like the author is handing them a win. And a great comparison is Power Rangers Megaforce. Something that Linkara said in his history of Power Rangers that really bothered him was every episode, Zordon would hand them a new special weapon to defeat the bad guys with. At that point, it didn't feel like a character arc, it didn't feel like a journey or they'd overcome something. It was just can case of here's a new toy, here's a new weapon, here's a new thing.
Here's a new thing we are marketing.
Exactly. And that's part of the problem is that you don't want to feel like your character, and this is something that comes a lot from professional wrestling, you don't ever want to feel like your character is a product. And in a lot of mainstream media, it can end up feeling that way, that your character is there to sell something. There's a difference between being tough, strong, competent, and highly skilled as character traits, and this character, look at this character. They are so tough, they're so strong, they're so skilled. They're so skilled. You must love them, okay? I'm interested because that sounds pretty cool. So what else you got? No, you don't get it. They're really skilled. Love them. I mean, I'm interested, but they're really skilled. Fucking love them. At that point, you feel like it's a desperate sell. You're right, Brew Griffin. That was Gosei. Thank you. I mean, to be fair, Gosei was Zordon Light, so can you blame me for getting mixed up? Also, in the case of Mulan, it goes back to the point where where we were interested in the original with seeing her character arc. We wanted to see her grow because it's cathartic to see someone start at the bottom and become a master. Now, that doesn't mean that a character who starts off as hyper competent is a bad character necessarily. Tex or Carolina from Red vs. Blue, two great examples of hyper competent characters who are still interesting. The problem was that Mulan's story was about her growth. If you take that away, well, you better have something to replace it with. You better have a new arc, a new story, a new thing to make interesting or intrigue people. Otherwise, you've just ripped out a huge chunk of your story and left it with a gaping wound.
I do have another example of very competent female lead of the character, like a main character.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to double check the name. Where are you? Hello? Because it's been a while since I checked this around. Oh, I am sorry. This is taking a while. It's a protagonist from Promised Neverland.
Never heard of that story.
Yeah, it's an anime, and it starts off really good. The first few chapters were absolutely amazing. Sadly, the end of the story had to be rushed, and they kind of had to do not so great creative decisions when it came to storytelling and panel layout and timing, all that.
Oof, I hate when that happens.
Yeah, basically at the start of the story, we are in an orphanage, and the main character and her closest friends, Emma, yeah, I think it was Emma, yeah, they find out that whenever one of them gets adopted, in fact, they are just sent for demons to be eaten. So they start hatching out a plan to escape. Emma is very driven, very hardcore little girl who has really good ideas on how to survive there, and how to get out of there. She is hyper competent for someone of her age. Apparently the manga was better since they rushed the anime season too. Yeah, they rushed the anime season, and they also rushed, unfortunately, some of the manga, especially when they got out of the when they got into the forest beyond the walls. But yeah, the character is extremely smart, very resourceful, natural born leader, and it's still a very interesting story. Mm-hmm. Because despite all these, and despite being able to like outsmart certain high, like being able to outsmart certain adults, it's still a very interesting story because you're constantly on the edge of your seat trying to figure out what's her next plan. And how are you going to get out of there? Is this plan going to work?
It's like Sherlock Holmes. He is a hyper competent detective, or Batman. They're hyper competent characters, but they have so many different ways to use that competence or hell, while I don't like that Yami Yugi won all of his duels, there was still that matter of, okay, I know he's gonna win, but I don't know how, and that's what keeps me interested.
Yeah. Also, it also helped in the Promised Neverland that it wasn't just about Emma being super hype competent and creating all these plays. It was a big part of it, and it was an amazing part of it. But there was also intrigue, trying to figure out why this is happening, the timing of it all, who's the mole, because someone is feeding them information. Then comes another nanny, and they have to deal with that. It's not just her being awesome; it's also her like moving around all these other parts, which don't always directly relate to her.
Indeed. Now, so that's what it ultimately comes down to. It comes down to the question not of did this character earn their power, not does the story revolve around them, not what color hair do they have, not does it make logical sense that they have this power. None of that ultimately matters. The core of is this person a Mary Sue is a simple question. Is this character hurting my interest in what is going on? If the answer, or rather, is this character's special treatment hurting my interest in what is going on? If that is the
Or to make
case,
it, or put,
sorry,
or put it in the lamest terms, is this character detrimental to the story?
yes. I think it's important to say, is this character's special treatment detrimental to the story? Because if a character is detrimental to the story because they are, let's say, I don't know, saying the N-word every 50 seconds and if they're saying if they're saying the N-word 50 seconds, that's detrimental to enjoyment of the story. That's its own problem, but that's entirely separate from the Mary Sue.
Yeah. I'm also, when I say detrimental for the story, I'm using Harry Potter as an example. I don't think Hermione Granger is a Mary Sue. However,
She's not.
they took a lot. She's not. She absolutely is not. However, in the movies, they took a lot of Ron's dialogue and all of a lot of his accomplishments, and gave them to Hermione. That is taking away the agency from
Actually,
other
yes.
characters.
Yes, because I was thinking book Hermione, but yes, no. The movie version of Hermione absolutely could be seen as a Mary Sue because her special treatment was give her special treatment was becoming detrimental to the story and
Or at the very detrimental to other characters, yes.
indeed. Well, the other characters are still part of the story, so it's an overall thing. I say the story to encompass characters and plot, not just plot. It's an overall term, an umbrella term.
Yep, yep, yep.
And that's what it ultimately comes down to. What it ultimately comes down to is the question, you know, am I still interested in what is going on, and does this character harm that interest? If they don't, it doesn't matter how powerful they are. It doesn't matter if the story treats them as the most popular person on the planet. It doesn't matter if they win all the time. If you are still interested in the story and the character doesn't harm that at all, they're not a Mary Sue. If, however, the special treatment towards them is actually harming your interest in the story and it's being detrimental to the story, the plot, and the characters, that is what makes them a Mary Sue. Is that a completely subjective criteria? Yes, this is a completely subjective thing.
Yep.
Now, let's try to act. Now, we have addressed people who are trying to analyze if a character is a Mary Sue. Now, let's address those who are worried about creating a Mary Sue, because that has been an annoying paranoia that has gone on for years, and I'm going to say this. The fear of making a Mary Sue has become just as detrimental and dangerous to healthy writing as the Mary Sue itself. Because it has led to people basically going, oh, I don't want to have my character do this cool thing. They might be called a Mary Sue. I don't want to give my character this prominent role. They might be called a Mary Sue. I don't want to X. They might be called a Mary Sue. I don't want to have Manu have a really cool and interesting scene. I might be seen as taking time away from the other players, even though they're really interested in my character.
Hey! No call-outs in the stream.
I'll call out whoever I damn well please, boy.
I have a pen and I will put you in a tutu.
I don't care. I look fabulous in one.
I will put you in a tutu that makes you look awful.
Try me.
Alright.
I fear no god or gremlin. And have a lovely night, cat.
As you can see, we're a little bit insane over here.
A little bit!
Just a little bit. Hello, neighbor. Right, let's see.
Hello, Moto.
Right there. Normal, multiply.
Yes. So.
I am dropping you right now.
I figured. So, someone asked for the Swan Lake tutu. Anyway. Now then. Let us try to give people some helpful advice on how to avoid the Mary Sue in a way that doesn't cause Mary Sue panic. Because again, that's a problem. Mary Sue panic can hurt your writing. It's okay to make your characters be cool. It's okay to make them be likable. It's okay to make them be interesting. It's okay to give them wins. Spectacular wins. It's okay to have wish fulfillment. But I have two pieces of advice. One, think about what is interesting you about the story. You know, is it the comedy? Is it the action? Is it the mystery? What have about it? And lean into those aspects. And if you feel your character is starting to take away from that aspect, then you can start to write around that. For example, the mangaka of Hellsing realized that Alucard was going to make the final battle was too powerful to make the final battle interesting. So he removed Alucard and put him on a boat, creating the tension of, can the people of London survive without Alucard to save them from Millennium? You know, the author of One Punch Man has found ways to make his story, has found what makes his story interesting, which is, you know, an evaluation of what it would look into, or almost a tragic look of what it would be like to be so overpowered that you have no challenge left, and he's based his story around that. You find what your selling point of your story is. You find what is it that you find interesting about the story, and you lean into that. And that can be anything. That can be the mystery, the spectacle. I'm repeating myself. I'm rambling. Dogi, I hope I this illustrated my point.
I am illustrating something.
I hope you were listening.
I was, but I'm also illustrating something.
Of course.
You brought this upon yourself.
I don't care.
You brought this upon yourself.
Anyway, but did I make my point clear? Everyone else, have I made my point clear?
Yeah, basically, don't be afraid of making a cool character. Just make sure that they are not destroying the story, basically.
Yeah. Don't be just focus on what you want the interesting part of your story to be, and make sure your character isn't getting in the way of that. Now, to speak to younger creators, and this is less me directing my words to them literally, but more what I would like to have said to all the young writers and artists who created Mary Sue's in their fanfics when they were 12. First of all, it is not wrong to give criticism to someone if they make a work public. What is wrong is being the internet and a bunch of fucking dickweeds. So, because again, the internet, yeah, a lot of the reactions they got were way too harsh and way too immature. Yes, their responses too were immature because, children and internet, but still, just saying cringe or Mary Sue doesn't fucking help. Here is advice I'd like to give in prosperity's sake that I hope would help. The mistake a lot of inexperienced writers make is impatience. They want to rush to the good part. They want to rush to the part where their favorite hero wins. They want to rush to the part where the hero marries the OC prince. They want to jump straight to that moment, and you can see why. It's a cathartic moment. But it's never as strong, it's never as cathartic as when you take time with it. It's like a video game. If you put in a cheat code and immediately beat the boss, I mean, it's cool for a second, but it doesn't last. But if you had to go through all the levels, trying and failing, and finally beat the boss, it's an amazing feeling. You want to give your readers that amazing feeling. You want to give your readers that feeling of when your hero does win, they go, fuck yeah! When your hero does, get the original, when your hero does end up fucking Captain Kirk on the deck of the Enterprise, your audience is going, I ship it! Take your time with it. Don't rush it. That's my advice there. Don't rush to the good stuff, because if you do, you're cutting out half your story. Now, I am going to open the floor to questions and comments from everyone. That includes you, Mr. Dagogi.
I am almost done with the fucking tutu. Hold on.
Awesome.
Let me just turn the beak yellow. This is going in stream, doodles.
Cool. Why is the beak yellow?
Because I gave you one tutu.
Ah, fair enough.
Is it possible for villain to be a Mary Sue?
Yes, actually. A great example of that is Aizen from Bleach. Because if a villain becomes so overpowered that you know that that they're always so overpowered that it starts to affect your enjoyment of the story, then it becomes a problem. And a villain can have that point. where it starts to become, okay, literally nothing our heroes do is gonna make any difference. He's always gonna pull something out their ass, or whatever plan they make, he's always gonna be like, aha, I predicted you were going to do that. You predicted I was literally going to fall on flat on my face into a cave where the magical sword of literally the only thing that beats you is there. Yes, that was all part of my master plan. Aha. You know, if the author starts playing favorites with the villain too much, it can become detrimental to the story. Again, you have to ask the question, is the favoritism towards this character harming your interest in the story? If the answer to that question is yes, they are a Mary Sue. Doesn't matter what side of the alignment divide they are on. Hell, you want to know an example of a Mary Sue that most of you will disagree with, but it is still technically true because it is a personal trope?
Another example would be Emperor Bellows from the Owl House or something.
Yep. And I was about to say the example, but I just realized I might be spoiling some people because I'm always worried. Not anyone here, but people. Oh, fuck it. Well, actually, I'm not going to say the name, but you know who I'm talking about. A character that would be a villain, so the primary antagonist of Welcome to the Show Season 4. Most of you would disagree on that. However, Zero found himself frustrated and losing interest in the story because of the fact that it felt to him like he never actually lost. Therefore, for Zero, he counts as a Mary Sue. And because ultimately it is a subjective trope.
Am I allowed to post a link in?
Yes. Actually, could you send to me? I want to see if I can, in fact, put the image in the stream itself.
It is in the stream doodles. Feel free to save it from there.
Okay, gentlemen and ladies, and the esteemed non-binary. Give me 1 second.
The monarchs in between and beyond.
Thank you very much. Gentlemen, ladies, and the monarchs in between and beyond, give me 1 second. There it is.
Ballerina Lunacorva, yay.
Interesting hairstyle you gave me.
I told you I was gonna make it as bad as I can.
Well, let's see if this works.
Also, that's a crown if you're wondering what the yellow part was.
No, I got that.
I can think of 2 season 4 Welcome to the Show villains, so I might need that narrowed down.
Okay. The non-divine one.
Non-divine one. The one who was temporarily?
Yes.
Ah.
Okay, let's see. Is this on the stream? Yes, it is. Behold.
I am not sorry.
No. And you're like, again, Ark, I understand you, but that's my point. It is a subjective trope, and ultimately it was harming one person's enjoyment. So for that person, he was. Anyway, let us return to more questions and comments from you, my esteemed viewers.
If they're able to focus.
I'll give them a second. Might
It'll
need
have
to be a minute. Indeed, Xenatos was a well done villain.
If you were given a chance to rewrite any Mary Sue in media, who would you rewrite and how?
John Cena. John Cena from the WB was a character with a lot of potential and a lot of really, really interesting feuds. But every time it ended up being, hey, here's an interesting feud. How will John Cena? Oh, he beat them easily. Well, what about this guy? Can John Cena possibly over? Oh, he beat them easily. Well, this guy, there's no chance that John Cena could ever. Oh, he beat them easily. But really, believe us now, he's really gonna struggle against this. Oh, and he beat them easily.
A Mary Sue I would rewrite. I can't think all that many because the ones.
And no, I
Because the
did not
only
see
one
your
that
cat question.
are cats, Mary Sue's.
Yes.
Okay, I'd probably. This isn't like on mainstream media, but Ebony Darkness, Dementia Raven Way. I would not rewrite anything, but I would have the author admit somewhere that this was a joke and not meant to be taken seriously.
Honestly, I think at this point it's a case of no, because like even the people who have like admitted it was a joke, then it turned out they probably weren't the actual author. So it's almost become part of the legend of no one will ever know.
Yeah, I know, but I would like the original author to just. That would be the only thing I would
Well,
rewrite,
the
and that
real
is
Slim
just the
Shady,
original.
please stand up.
Yeah, like that is the only thing I would rewrite, and that is the original author in the very first chapter admitting, yeah, this is a joke. That is all I would, you know, that is all I would do. Mainly because the stories that have, like, quote unquote, the biggest Mary Sue's, I have not watched that media, so I cannot make a complete rewrite.
It's the same with me.
Like, I keep hearing a lot that, hey, Leah is a. Not Leah. Fucking Ray. That Ray is a Mary Sue. I don't know enough of the story.
Indeed.
Delos a Mary Sue? Interesting thought. I considering him an interesting villain. Not saying why, because I still want to show Lunacorva the show without spoilers. Yeah.
Indeed.
Oh, there is one Mary Sue I would like to rewrite, and that is one of my own characters from my very first fanfic. I would make the story make a lot more sense. That is what I would do.
Fair enough. So, sorry, again, opening the floor up to people. Is there any other major questions that you have? And Dogi, do you have anything you would like to add?
Hmm. Do not be afraid of Mary Sue's, for Mary Sue is a relative term in your work of fiction. Your character can be hyper competent, but if everything, but even if that hyper competence doesn't, solve every single problem around them in the story, then it's not a Mary Sue.
Wise words indeed, and precisely.
Making a Mary Sue is a rite of passage to most creators. Yeah, I know it's a rite of passage for most creators. I still regret what I wrote back in the day.
I would say more that failure is a rite of passage for most creators. Screwing up is a rite of passage for most creators. That doesn't necessarily mean they'll make a Mary Sue. That just means that if they don't, they're gonna make a different mistake.
Yep, 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 yep. I mean, I'm just doing a spin.
Yes. So, unless though it is a little earlier than I was going to before, I feel that as there are no further questions or comments that people
I
really.
actually do have one question.
Oh, yes.
Okay, in media, who do you think deserves the moniker of Mary Sue that has been given to them, and who you think doesn't deserve it?
Okay, two characters. Two characters that I think deserve a character that I think deserves it, and a character that I think doesn't deserve it.
Hmm.
A character that I think doesn't deserve it is Aragon. People act like he's a Mary Sue when he is the walking embodiment of no matter how strong you are, there's someone who can kick your ass. Like every time he gets a power up or gets a skill increase, he then like a chapter later meets someone just as strong as him or someone who makes him look pathetic by comparison. One that I do feel has been called a Mary Sue and unfortunately yes does deserve it is Rey from Star Wars. Unfortunately, Disney spent so much time giving her, oh, and now she wins this instantly, and now she has this power, and oh, that moment of character doubt, yeah, it doesn't matter anymore. We're skipping past that. Now here's this thing she accomplishes, and this thing. That not only did it rob her of a chance to actually be a character, but it ended up harming the story when the intrigue was, ooh, how is Rey going to stop Kylo Ren and the First Order? Oh, you mean those people she has been dealing with easily the last two movies? Gee, I fucking wonder.
And is there a character you think is a Mary Sue but isn't called a Mary Sue?
Who I think is a Mary Sue but isn't called one. Well, I mentioned John Cena, but that's usually because wrestling doesn't often use the term Mary Sue. But
Y-
one that I think is one, isn't called one, but is in a media where that term is often applied. Let me think. I'm looking at like my collection of books and movies to see if there is one that I am missing.
Aragon or Aragon, they sound the
Aragon.
same. The Dragon Rider.
Ara- Aragon the Dragon Rider.
Okay.
One who isn't, but I think should be. Oh, another example of a character who was called a Mary Sue, but definitely isn't one. Tex from Red versus Blue. At one point, there were people who were coming into the story from season 9 who were calling her a Mary Sue, and it's very clear that they had no idea of context and were just throwing the term out there because they threw the term out there because they'd heard it and thought it applied when it really didn't.
Yeah. Also, Ark asks how to get rid of Mary Sue paranoia.
Simple. Stop thinking about it in terms of is my character a Mary Sue or not. Don't think of what is wrong with my story. Think of what interests me about my story and look to highlight that as much as possible.
My own advice on how to get rid of the paranoia, understand that there will always be people who will criticize your characters for most benign, stupid reasons. Like, if you go public with your writing, there's gonna be someone who's gonna be calling your character Mary Sue. Raymond has been called a Mary Sue.
There's always going to be cinema sins will always exist.
Yeah. So as long as it's just a few people saying that word without like actually giving context or criticism how to improve, they don't matter. Just understand that there's gonna be people like that because again, looking at Raymond, he gets called a Mary Sue because and this is something that's actually outside my own powers. Apparently, Raymond is a very well liked character, despite being very chaotic and like very unpredictable. He's also a genius and has survived things he shouldn't, and is a multi-dimensional hopper. People have called him Mary Sue for that.
Mm-hmm. Because a lot of the time they're making those statements while missing context. And also, to answer your previous question, I give up. The only one I can think of is John Cena, that isn't called a Mary Sue, but I think should be.
Also, Exosuit Video Games, to give a small bit of defense for Rey, they apparently had no idea who she was supposed to be for the trilogy. Yeah, that makes sense, but at the same time, that's
We're criticizing the ultimate result, and that's still poor. That's still poor writing. It's like here's why you screwed up, but you're still screwed up. This is almost a case of in my defense, the reason my car broke down is because I forgot to screw in the wheel. Okay, so that's still your fuck up. You still forgot to screw in the wheel.
yeah, 7, 8, and 9 had no overall plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other problem is they kind of kept compounding on the issue, even in ways that hurt their overall story. For example, one thing that is really praised in episode 8 was Rey had no special origin. She came from nothing. She came from nothing. She is just a missing girl. She wasn't born special at all. Really great idea. But people who champion this side of the story leave out a critical detail that a scene later, Snoke directly says, "Oh, you are a special chosen one created by the Force to be the light counterpart to Kylo Ren's dark counterpart." And then further scenes later, she again is being handed power-ups just strictly by the plot. So rather than making her a normal, ordinary person who isn't born special and becomes special because of her own actions and efforts, no, they immediately erase that the next chapter and go, oh, wait, no, but she is totally born special, and here is her innate superpower abilities.
Yeah, hardly the fault of the character, it's just poor planning doesn't change the end result. Like,
Exactly.
basically, imagine me driving a car and I swerve to avoid hitting a cat and I drive through a window. It's not the window's it's not the window's fault, but the window is still broken.
Indeed. But that comes down to it in the terms of all characters, because like this would go beyond a craftsman blaming their tools and into a craftsman blaming the creation. Obviously, the creation is not obviously the creation is not at fault. And as for Luke Skywalker, what that comes, it's the same reason why Batman and Superman these days are called Mary Sues, because there are people who, in response to characters they like being called Mary Sue or just hearing that thrown around, get defensive, and then they look back at characters from the grandfather clause and go, well, if this one's a Mary Sue, well, this one has to be fair. And to some extent, they do have a point. Like, not every, but yes, there are Batman and Superman stories where it's clear that the author was not putting in any effort. Or where the favoritism is detrimental to the story. Cough, cough, Frank Miller, cough. However, in the
Yeah.
case of Luke Skywalker, it very much does come across as pettiness, or pettiness, or people not understanding the criticism. Because with Rey, a lot of the people's criticism is that she is so successful, so effortlessly all the time, that it feels like the story is handing her power-ups and harming the threat level of its antagonists, and also the competency of its other characters, where it feels like every other scene she just waltzes into the story and goes, I suddenly have the power, I suddenly have this new power, the problem is solved. Rather than
Ark
letting
asks
her
what.
solve it by her ingenuity or effort.
Okay, so Ark asks what is grandfather clause. We already explained this at the start of the stream, but quick recap.
Yes. The grandfather clause is the phenomena where a character or creation that was written before a form of criticism is given a pass for it. For example, we have a lot of high opinions of the old Greek plays, even though they use Deus Ex Machina all the time. But because they are older stories and came about before Deus Ex Machina became a prominent criticism, we kind of give them an exception. Same with Mary Sue. A lot of heroes were written before Mary Sue was a term, so those heroes who were written before that point, they get an exception. It's the grandfather clause. If you were written before the term became a thing, then you are usually given an exemption from it.
Basically, this wasn't a thing when this was first created, so we're ignoring this specific criticism because of it.
Precisely.
I had a term for it. I had an idea for it, but then I forgot. It's kind of like a. God damn it! I had another one, and then it just whoosh, into the air, just like that. So would Anakin be Mary Sue due to his power level before become Vader? I would not think so.
I would not. And I'll go. Here's the reason why I would say that does not apply to Luke or Anakin. With Luke, let's face it, he never won because he was superpowered. In almost every victory his blowing up the Death Star, he did with help. He had support and help. His main victory of redeeming Darth Vader had nothing to do with how powerful he was. Had nothing to do with how strong he was. In fact, it's implied heavily that if Luke Skywalker had done what the Jedi expected or wanted him to do, run up to Darth Vader, beat him in a lightsaber duel and killed him, that would have been playing right into the Emperor's hands. No, Luke won because of his compassion and ability to forgive. That is what saved the galaxy, not his power. As for Anakin, well, this is why the Jedi were making the mistake with Luke, because they made the mistake with Anakin. They focus so much on how powerful he is, how strong and skilled with the Force, but they didn't pay attention to his mental state. They didn't pay attention to his emotional vulnerability because they never thought in terms of like that. They had forgotten to concern themselves with emotions and vulnerability and fears and doubts. They stopped chimneyed that entire process. And that led to what was supposed to have been their savior being handed over to the devil. The reason Anakin's power doesn't make him a Mary Sue is because the story, the dark tragedy, is that power being turned against the heroes.
I'm glad Ashoka left when she did. I do not know enough Star Wars lore to comment on that.
Yes. Because, like, if Rey had been written in a similar way of, she's super powerful, ends up having a breakdown and becomes an enemy, that's an interesting story. But in the way it was basically, it was the story just constantly handing her an easy win every time. Essentially, again, to quote Lunacorva, there was no challenge left. No heaven to aspire to, no hell to avoid. With Luke, there was a heaven to aspire to and a hell to avoid. With Anakin, there was a heaven that seemed within fingertips of reach and a hell he fell into. I don't know. Ask YouTube. Oh wait, click on the smiley faces in the chat. I think there'll probably be one there. There usually is. Yep, there is.
I'm dabbing on you.
Cool.
Eat your vegetables!
Ooh, broccoli. You're fine, Ark. You are fine. Is there anything else that people would like to say / ask?
Raise the victim, let's give her a ton of flashy tools and powers with no great real struggle or training, so she'll be seen as strong character writing. Yeah.
It's like I said before, they were so focused on her being an advertisement, they never gave her a chance to be an actual character. In fact,
Basically,
you know what? Because we've got time still. Sorry, I was interrupting you, Doki.
yeah, I was going to say, I think the writers were more focused on writing. Here's this cool scene, here's this cool scene, here's this cool scene, and didn't bother writing a proper bridge to make the cool, shocking scenes make, like, actually cool and shocking.
Mm-hmm. In fact, here's something I've thought to give her something that is entirely uniquely her own. Anakin was the power. Luke was the compassion. Let's have Rey be the mind. She is the brains. She is the smartest of all the protagonists, the most innovative, and the most creative, because we know she's a scavenger. We know she has worked with multiple different parts and tools and things. Have her be that personality who is good at figuring out how things work, who is great at finding creative solutions and good at jury rigging things. For example, in the Millennium Falcon scene, you can have her be really bad at piloting it, but when a fire breaks loose, she grabs a bottle of this, a bottle of that, mixes them together, and makes the fire retardant foam. And she says, like, I figured out how to do that. I figured out how to do something like that years ago. You establish her as quick thinking, innovative, and incredibly resourceful. In terms of, her breaking into Kylo Ren's mind, have her try to do that, because her trying to do that makes sense and continues the idea of her being innovative, but you don't need to have her succeed on that. You just need to have her be making the attempt to do so, to show that she is constantly thinking outside the box, constantly thinking of answers. She's the kind of person who will go, let's try this, that didn't work, let's try this, that didn't work, let's try this, that didn't work, let's try this. Quick thinking, resourceful, and also very determined. And finally, the battle against Kylo Ren himself, have her go full MacGyver on him. Have her jury rig traps, have her create smoke bombs, have her use hit and run tactics. She knows she can't beat him in a straight up fight. She's not beating him in a straight up fight. She's outsmarting him. She's using her wit. I would still have her lose, because that way you have something for her to work towards in future stories. But in that moment, you can have her lose while still putting her over, while still making her look really strong. She's not the strongest, she might not necessarily be the kindest or the most forgiving, but she is the smartest. That is what I would do with her. Because it gives her her own unique skill set that, when tied to her backstory, makes it entirely her own. It's something she has honed. It's something she is good at. It's not something that the authors just hand to her. It's part of who she is. And ultimately, the biggest victim of the writing was Rey herself and her fans. Because again, she was never given the chance to be her own character. Now, any more questions or comments? Mr. Crimson, are you still there?
I am still here.
That question extended to yourself as well.
Yeah, agree. She has on her toolbox to work with. Yee.
I did see that, yes.
Superman, Mary Sue or no? Depends on the writer.
Yes. Doggy hit it before me did. Entirely dependent on the. entirely dependent on the writer. You can pull up many Silver Age comics where I would say 100% yes. Many modern comics where I would say 100% yes. You could argue that he was one in the Justice League movie because there was that big problem of, wait, why doesn't Superman just solve everyone's problems? He clearly can. On the other hand, All-Star Superman, not in the slightest. DCAU Superman, not in the slightest. Okay, a couple of episodes, to be fair, especially as someone pointed out in season 1 of Justice League, there was a few instances where the writers were kind of struggling with fitting him in, but they definitely got around that. But for the most part, DCAU Superman, not in the slightest. Again, depends on the writer.
Superman is only as powerful as the story needs him to be.
Oh boy, I have problems with that. Well, mainly the way that Death Battle used that, because they took a statement that was essentially, our character has plot armor, and they took that to be an in-universe statement that Superman is like the Doomslayer and can just instantly match his power level or strength to any threat he faces, which is not what that term fucking means.
Thousands Superman's world is
What?
world of cardboard speech.
Fantastic scene, iconic moment, practically justifies Justice League Season 3 by its very existence.
Oh, you have opinions on Justice League, the animated series? Because I've been binging the seasons right now.
Cool. Well, would you like to hear my thoughts on this?
Yes.
Justice League Season 3 was almost a scrub Season 9. It was almost a supernatural post-season 5. It was almost one of those cases where a story had a perfectly fine ending, but then continued on way past its natural and satisfying expiry date.
Let's see, Celestia, Mary Sue, no.
Yeah, let me finish my answer to you.
Yeah.
To Dogi first. Then I'll get to Ark because she's actually an example of the opposite problem, I think. So, with sorry, brain. When they get to the end of season 2, of season 2 of Justice League, it was such of Justice League Unlimited. It was such a perfect ending. They could have ended there, but then the studio asked them, "Hey, continue it for another season." Justice League Season 3 is one of the few cases where that has happened, where the continuation is still actually good. And the reason why, sorry, brain, where it's still actually really good. And a big part of that is the World of Cardboard speech. You could stop at Justice League Epilogue and say, you know what, I'm satisfied, I'm good, I'm wrapped up here, we don't need more. But if you did that, you'd miss the World of Cardboard speech. And I don't think anyone should miss the World of Cardboard speech. That's why I say, World of Cardboard speech practically justifies Season 3 by itself. Then again, you could do a bit of an alternative cut where you put Justice League Epilogue at the end of Season 3 instead of the end of Season 2. That could actually tie it all together quite nicely. So, Celestia. First of all, don't know who Sunny is, so I can't comment on that. Celestia. She is a problem of Mary Sue. Panic. Because in the first 2 seasons, yes, there was kind of this feeling going around that, you know, can you really feel like the ponies are ever in any real danger when Celestia can just fly in and feels like she could just fly in and solve the problem by herself? Because, yeah, Celestia kind of felt like Dumbledore. She felt like the character who was basically watching over and there to step in if things got too bad and she'd be able to resolve things. Even with Discord, it never felt like she was intimidated by Discord. It almost felt like she was the stern parent to him. You know, getting him to cut the crap when he was getting too over the top full of himself or not getting to the bloody point. Anyway, I think the writers realized this and tried to mitigate that. The problem is that they went too hard in the opposite direction. She went from Guardian Overseer to My Little Pony to every villain who was introduced every time seemed to get an easy win over her. It started with Chrysalis. Oh, a villain who actually manages to overpower Celestia? Oh, that's an epic moment. Hell, we finally get to see Celestia fight. This should be an epic moment. This should have been as badass as Twilight versus Tyrek. Instead, it's just one beam struggle. That's it. You know, she barely does anything. And then every villain afterward just kept getting easy win and easy win and easy win and easy win until she went from, you know, maybe she's a bit too powerful to she felt fucking useless. There's a middle ground. There's a middle ground between, you know, utterly useless and no one is a threat, where there are people who can beat her, but it is a rare and impressive occurrence, not something that everyone does every week. She got dwarfed.
Boom.
Any
Like,
questions?
here's a... Oh my god, the sun is getting up. Well, almost. I see light in the sky. It's not full light, but there's a little bit more. It's a little more gray and blue than just pure black. Oh my god, it's actually dusk now. I can see the colors.
Don't you mean dawn?
Dawn, yeah. But I like the word dusk more.
Good for you, you're wrong.
I know I'm wrong. I don't care. The word shouldn't be so fun to say if it's the wrong word to use.
Touche.
Yeah, it's still relatively dark. It's not safe to go outside yet, but soon.
What, I thought you owned the night.
I am no Batman.
No, he is the night.
But if I own the night, does that mean I own the Batman?
Yep.
I'm gonna move to the Batcave real quick.
You do that.
Na 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 na.
Dogie!
Here's the surprise gremlin.
Oh,
have a
and I'll
feeling that
ask
would
that
not go
and I'll
well.
answer that question in case people are asking. Again, same with Superman. If Batman's a Mary Sue, it depends entirely on how he's written.
Yes. Yes. So, yeah.
Frank Miller Batman, absolutely a Mary Sue. Robert Pattinson Batman, absolutely not. Speaking of Batman, I realized something the other day.
Yes?
It was a quote from an interview about with Kevin Conroy, and I realized why Batman, why Kevin Conroy did such a good Batman voice.
Oh.
Because he wasn't trying to do a voice. Every other Batman, well, almost every other Batman, but almost every other Batman is trying to do a voice. They're trying to put on a deep, dark, gravelly voice. They're trying to put on the Batman voice. But Conroy's Batman, it wasn't trying to do a voice. It was trying to convey an emotion. It was trying to get across anger. It was trying to get across a feeling. He wasn't getting his voice dark because, oh, and that's how Batman is supposed to be sound. The idea is he is seething underneath.
But yes, does the audience have any other questions?
Or comments, or anything else of the sort. But, Kevin Conroy, the VA for Batman the Animated Series.
Yay! Oh man, if the DC chat hears that we are talking about freaking DC stuff without them here, it's gonna be hell to play.
I give the fucks not. They can come in. That's their fault for not being here.
But yeah, he actually sounded normal. Yeah, that's also the thing. He tried to sound like an actual person.
Indeed. But again, he wasn't. That's my point. He wasn't trying to put on a voice. He was just trying to sound seethingly angry.
Because anger scares people.
But that's how he felt. That was who Batman was. It was his anger, his rage, his seething fury at an unjust world who murdered parents in front of their children. Indeed. He died with honor. Which is more than we can say for most.
Okay then.
Think about it this way. The death of Kevin Conroy was tragic, but I'd rather a tragic death as a man with full honor and full respect than him ending up like a J.K. Rowling, where if he died tomorrow, we'd be celebrating the death. Or if she died tomorrow, we'd be celebrating the death.
I don't think most of us would be like, okay, some assholes would be celebrating but I don't think any decent person will be running around in the streets with the party poppers going, "Whoa, whoa,
Okay,
Joanne's dead!"
not in that sense, but unfortunately at this point, if J.K. Rowling died, there'd be people who sighed in relief. Oh good, she's not gonna hurt us anymore. That is the tragedy.
Yeah.
It's and the tragedy that in the last few years of her life, if she died tomorrow, they would be remembered as years that she spent hurting people, rather than someone who the last moments of his life we remember for him drowning because he tried to fucking save someone. Rest in peace, Kazuka Takahashi, sorry. A fair point, Mr. the Unicorn.
I cannot see what they said.
That if they think if
Oh.
DC animated movies focus on other heroes and not use Batman in them and show off the many, many other heroes, it would be refreshing. It's a fair point.
You said unicorn. I've been calling them honey drop.
Yes, I said Mr. the Unicorn. Though if I misgendered them, I apologize.
I also like the BTS version of Batman because he wasn't just angry Batman. Guy had compassion too. I think this is a discussion we are gonna have to have another stream. We are completely out of the.
That is probably correct. We should discuss Batman in another stream. You are absolutely right. In that case, does anyone have any more questions or comments on the Mary Sue? Otherwise, I feel that this conversation has come to a natural and organic conclusion, and I will end it so we are not just sitting in awkward silence for the next 20 minutes, 14 minutes.
Something that I tend to do. Shh.
Now that one wasn't an intentional call out. That was just your paranoia.
He keeps calling me out without needing to.
Apparently.
Spree! I am a girl, no skin off my nose if you misgender me, says Honeydrop the Unicorn.
Oh, fair enough. In that case, Miss the Unicorn. Except I apologize, Ms. the Unicorn, because Miss the Unicorn sounds like you fired a gun at one. You are allowed to PM me, though my help may be limited, Mr. Griffin. Alright. Have a good night, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the stream. Mr. Crimson, I hope you enjoyed accompanying me on this one. Would you like to be involved in the next one?
Yes, but I also would like to get either... I don't think we're gonna get Doran in it, because Doran's unfortunately in different time zones and is asleep at this time. But we might be able to get Logan in here.
Excellent. So, for our next conversation... Sorry.
If we explain to him that, hey, DC conversation, this is something you're good at.
Ah, excellent. So, shall we make next week's conversation about Batman and the DC universe?
Sure thing.
Brilliant. Well, please look forward to that, ladies and gentlemen, and the monarchs of the non-binary.
And beyond.
Indeed. And have a lovely evening.